Poetry. This program is devoted to Levertov and Charles Olsson.
I always took it for granted that I was a poet. I mean, I knew from an age before I had it as a concept. I accepted the fact that I was a person who wrote poems, and I thought at various stages that I was also going to be a ballet dancer, and then that I was also going to be a painter, because I painted all through my teens. But I always felt, without question, that I was going to write poems, and I had begun at an early age, and I never stopped writing poems. I didn't write very frequently, I guess, in certain years, but this was something that was always going on. There did come a point when that became the central thing, though.
On Greenwich Street, not in the Village, but on the Lower West Side in New York City, the poet Denise Levertov lives with her husband, the novelist Mitchell Goodman. The Goodmans live in the top floor, and there's no elevator. The sign on the door is a housing authority sign meaning artist in residence. Although she is without question an American poet, Denise Levertov was actually born in England in October 1923.
My mother is Welsh, and my father was a Russian Jew who settled in England and became an Anglican person. So I grew up in England, but I didn't go to school, and therefore I don't think I was ever very English. I mean, I felt Welsh, and I felt Russian Jewish, you know. I loved England. I loved the English country and the English language, but I didn't really share a background with other English poets that I knew. So that when I came to America, I was sort of fit material for the melting pot, you know, especially as I was quite young, but not really that young in years. I was about, 24, I guess, when I came to England, but I was very young for my age. To America, I mean, Mitch and I, my husband and I, are the same age, and we were 23, I guess, when we met, and we, in Michael Rumaker's phrase, referring to himself, we feel that we were 23 going on 16 when we met, you know. So I was actually, I think, very, very immature when I when I came here, and therefore able to become an American poet, as perhaps someone who comes here when they're older and more developed as a person never gets to be. English writers, I mean, who settle in America, you know.
We met in a youth hostel in Geneva, Switzerland, but very much by accident. There was a mixed company of many kinds of Europeans moving around the continent after the war, and we had been separately hitchhiking around Europe in 1947 with friends.
In opposite directions, sort of.
Going in opposite directions, yeah. And we met there. After we met, I left and got on the road. After I got on the road, I thought twice about it and decided to come back.
Yeah, we're married 18 years, actually, which is rather startling. Living in New York has been, in some ways, a somewhat arbitrary thing for us, because we don't live here all year round. We have an old farmhouse in Maine, and we go up there in the summer. I feel a great need to be in the country and to see trees and walk on earth and grass instead of on concrete, but I do feel very much at home in New York. I'm sort of a New Yorker. I know my way around in the subway, the streets, and so forth.
I do more work in Maine than I do here.
With me, it probably varies, but I think the most work I ever did in any year was the year that I had a Guggenheim Fellowship, and the most work that I did in that year was done during the part of it that was spent in Maine.
It was interesting, you know, as a woman poet, that Denise was, in that Guggenheim year, she put a lot of that money into machinery, like a washing machine and a dryer, and it really made a lot of difference, you know.
If you look in the kitchen, in fact, you'll see that the washing machine says the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Washing Machine. The dishwasher says the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Dishwasher. And this is not as flippant as it sounds. I'm really very, very grateful to have had these things, and they made a great difference to my life. There's a dryer in the bedroom. I copy it out by hand several times usually before I get to the point of typing it, and then in typing it I make various corrections, and then when I think the poem is done, I copy it into this notebook because I always lose typescripts, and this is something, you know, that I don't lose, touch wood. I don't tend to lose these copybooks.
Denise Levertov's most recent books are The Jacob's Ladder, published by New Directions in 1962, and Oh, Taste and See, New Directions, 1964. The following poems are from the latter book.
The ache of marriage. The ache of marriage. Thigh and tongue, beloved, are heavy with it. It throbs in the teeth. We look for communion and are turned away, beloved, each and each. It is Leviathan, and we in its belly, looking for joy, some joy not to be known outside it. 2 by 2 in the arc of the ache of it. And then you also wanted me to read, I think, the one called Losing Track. Losing track. Long after you have swung back away from me, I think you are still with me. You come in close to the shore on the tide and nudge me awake the way a boat adrift nudges the pier. Am I a pier, half in, half out of the water? And in the pleasure of that communion, I lose track. The moon I watch goes down, the tide swings you away before I know I'm alone again long since. Mud sucking at grey and black timbers of me, a light growth of green dreams drying. Thank you. I don't have very much current work. I sort of got hung up this winter on wanting to, feeling I had to write a poem about the war and not being able to do it, and being unable to do anything else as a result, until a certain point when I did do a poem that was totally unrelated to anything like that. And writing that one seemed to make it possible to write the one I've been hung up on all the time. Is it? Yeah. Oh God, where is it? This must be it. This one doesn't have a title as yet. I have to find a title for it. And this was not a dream, it was a sort of waking vision. 2 angels among the throng of angels paused in the upward abyss, facing angel to angel. Blue and green glowed the wing feathers of one angel, from red to gold the sheen of the others. These 2, so far as angels may dispute, were poised on the brink of dispute, brink of fall from angelic stature. For these tall ones, angels whose wingspan encompasses entire earthly villages, whose heads, if their feet touched earth, would top pines or redwoods, live by their vision's harmony, which sees at one glance the dark and light of the moon. These 2 hovered dazed before one another, for one saw the sea-feathered, peacock-breakered crests
of the other angel's magnificence different from his own. And the other's eyes flickered with vision of flame petalings, cream gold grain feather glitterings, the wings of his fellow. And both in immortal danger of dwindling, of dropping into the remote forms of a lesser being. But as these angels, the only halted ones among the many who passed and repassed, trod air as swimmers tread water, each gazing on the angelic wings of the other, the intelligence proper to great angels flew into their wings, the intelligence called intellectual love, which, understanding the perfections of scarlet, leapt up among blues and greens strong-shafted, and among amber down illumined the sapphire bloom, so that each angel was iridescent with the strange, newly seen hues he watched, and their discovering pause, and the speech their silent interchange of perfection was, never became a shrinking to opposites, and they remained free in the heavenly chasm, remained angels, but dreaming angels, each imbued with the mysteries of the other. The other poem, the one that I've been hung up on, which I wrote after that, is called Life at War. The disasters numb within us, caught in the chest, rolling in the brain like pebbles. The feeling resembles lumps of raw dough weighing down a child's stomach on baking day. Or Rilke said it, my heart, could I say of it, it overflows with bitterness, but no, as though its contents were simply balled into formless lumps. Thus do I carry it about. The same war continues. We have breathed the grits of it in all our lives. Our lungs are pocked with it. The mucous membrane of our dreams coated with it. The imagination filmed over with the grey filth of it. The knowledge that humankind, delicate man, whose flesh responds to a caress, whose eyes are flowers that perceive the stars, whose music excels the music of birds, whose laughter matches the laughter of dogs, whose understanding manifests designs fairer than the spider's most intricate web, still turns without surprise, with mere regret, to the scheduled breaking open of breasts whose milk runs out over the entrails of still alive babies. Transformation of witnessing eyes to pulp fragments. Implosion of skinned penises into carcass gullies. We are the humans, men who can make. Being so lovely, we have believed one another the mirror image of a God we felt as good, who do these acts, who convince ourselves it is necessary. These acts are done to our own flesh. Burned human flesh is smelling in Vietnam as I write. Yes, this is the knowledge that jostles for space in our bodies, along with all we go on knowing of joy, of love. Our nerve filaments twitch with its presence, day and night. Nothing we say has not the husky phlegm of it in the saying. Nothing we do has the quickness, the sureness, the deep intelligence living at peace would have. I feel that I've only just begun to have some understanding of what the angel poem is about, and not enough understanding to want to talk about it, because it was a mystery to me. I hadn't been thinking about angels. The version of angels appeared, as far as my consciousness was concerned, out of nowhere, and it seemed at the time of writing quite unrelated to anything that I had consciously in mind. Since they were written very close to one another, and since one did seem to pave the way for the other to be written, I presume that there is actually some underlying relation between them, but I don't feel that I understand what it was. The angel poem is a mediumistic kind of poem, and the war poem is a poem that expresses what I know, I think, and feel.
With a leap, she said it was an arabesque I made off the porch the night of the St. Valentine's Day storm into the snow. No, she failed, of course, to make the point what a sight I was, the size I am, all over the storm, trying to be graceful, or was it? She hadn't seen me in 19 years. Like right off the Orontes, the Jews are unique because they settled astride the East African rift. Nobody else will grant, like he said, the volcano any one of us does sit upon in quite such a tangible fashion. Thus surprise when Yellowstone kicks up a fuss. Where it says excessively rough moraine, I count such shapes this evening in the universe. I run back home out of the new moon, makes fun of me in each puddle on the road. The war of Africa against Eurasia has just begun again. Gondwana.
This is Charles Olsson, born December 27th, 1910. And to say that his size, energy, and imagination are prodigious is almost an understatement. In 1950, Charles Olsson wrote an essay which grew out of an exchange of letters with the poet Robert Creeley. The essay was titled Projective Verse, and it set forth many of the technical and philosophical principles of what has been called the new American poetry.
I looked around and I found there isn't any ars poetica in existence. Literally.
Olsson's projective verse essay set forth the concept of open verse, or composition by field, as opposed to closed verse, or composition by inherited literary forms with set line patterns and rhyme schemes. Olsson even spoke of the typewriter as the modern poet's stave and bar, such as a musician uses, and by means of which the poet can indicate exactly the breath, the pauses, the suspensions even of syllables in the words and the lines. Form, in the new poetry, is never more than an extension of content. The poem grows from the inside out, that is to say, organically, like anything in nature.
We arrange the measurements. Now we have to get to nature. That's where we are today, and science and poetry today is brilliant because it's already now becoming, returning to what, again, my great master and the companion of my poem, Mr. Whitehead, said, called his cosmology the philosophy of organism.
In recent years, Charles Olsson has returned to his hometown of Gloucester, Massachusetts. It is here that he is writing his Maximus poems, a major poetic undertaking comparable in scope, according to some critics, to the cantos of Ezra Pound. The first volume of the Maximus poems was published in 1960 by Jargon Corinth Books. Letter 27, Maximus to Dogtown, is a poem that Olsson withheld from that first volume. As always, the setting is Gloucester. And incidentally, the word polis in the final line of the poem is the Greek word for city.
Maximus to Dogtown, letter 27, withheld. I come back to the geography of it. The land falling off to the left, where my father shot his scabby golf, and the rest of us played baseball into the summer darkness until no flies could be seen, and we came home to our various piazzas where the women buzzed. To the left, the land fell to the city. To the right, it fell to the sea. I was so young, my first memory is of a tent spread to feed lobsters to Rexall conventioneers. And my father, a man for kicks, came out of the tent roaring with a bread knife in his teeth to take care of a druggist. They'd told him he'd made a pass at my mother. She laughing so sure, as round as her face. Heinz pink and apple under one of those frame hats women then. This is no bare incoming of novel abstract form. This is no welter or the forms of those events. This, Greeks, is the stopping of the battle. It is the imposing of all those antecedent predecessions, the precessions of me, the generation of those facts which are my words. It is coming from all that I no longer am, yet am, the slow westward motion of more than I am. There is no strict personal order for my inheritance. No Greek will be able to discriminate my body. An American is a complex of occasions, themselves a geometry of spatial nature. I have this sense that I am one with my skin, plus this, that forever the geography leans in on me. I compel, backwards I compel Gloucester to yield, to change. Polis is this. That the basic understanding is that you don't understand. That's a very, very brilliant truth. I can read you the best poem I ever wrote, The Librarian, is all Frank Moore, describing him as my brother, the brother who got born misshapen and all this. Oh boy. It's a hard poem to read it, because it's, I hope I can do it. Dutch? Yeah. It's called The Library. The landscape. The landscape. Again, Gloucester. The shore one of me is, duplicates, and from which, from offshore I, Maximus, am removed, observe. In this night I moved on the territory with combinations, new mixtures of old and known personages. The leader, my father, and an old guy is here selling books and manuscripts. My thought was, as I looked in the window of his shop, there should be materials here for Maximus. When, then, I saw he was the young musician, has been there, been before me, before. It turned out it wasn't a shop, it was a loft, wharf house, in which, as he walked me around a year ago, came back. I had been there before, with my wife and son. I didn't remember. He presented me insinuations via himself and his girl, both of whom I had known for years, but never in Gloucester. I had moved them in to my country. His previous appearance had been in my parents' bedroom, where I found him intimate with my former wife. This boy was now the librarian of Gloucester, Massachusetts. Black space, old fish house, motions of ghosts, I dogging his steps. he, not my father, not my father, by name himself, with his face twisted at birth, possessed of knowledge, pretentious, giving me what in the instant I knew better of. But the somber place, the flooring, crude like a wharf's and a barn's space. I was struck by the fact I was in Gloucester and that my daughter was there, that I would see her. She was over the cut. I hadn't even connected her with my being there, that she was here, that she was there in the promised land, the cut. But there was this business of poets, that all my Jews were in the fish house too, that the librarian had made a party. I was to read. There were many of them slumped around. It was not for me. I was outside. It was the fort. The fort was in East Gloucester, Old Gorton's Wharf, where the library was. It was a region of coal houses, bins. In one, a gang was beating someone to death in a corner of the labyrinth of fences. I could see their arms and shoulders whacking down, but not the victim. I got out of there, but cops tailed me along the fort beach toward the tavern. The place is still half dark, mud, coal dust. There is no light east of the bridge. Only on the headland toward the harbor from Cressy's have I seen it once, when my daughter ran out on a spit of sand. Isn't even there. Where is Bristow? When does 1A get me home? I am caught in Gloucester. What's buried behind Lufkin's diner? Who is Frank Moore? You live with your people as well as your ghosts.
The Librarian is included in the book The Distances, poems by Charles Olsson, published by Grove Press.
Vulcan, like Neptune's father, Apollo's father, yeah. Vulcan. We need that like a hole in our heads. We need neither Vulcan nor Apollo. We need only heaven and earth.
This is NET, the National Educational Television Network.